Hope all is well out there in live stream land. And greetings to everyone, fellow practitioners, all brothers and sisters in birth, aging, and death. That's a reflection that Ajahns in Thailand often give as part of the beginning of their talk. It's something that we all have in common, from the person we least like to the person we most like, to the person we feel most distant from, to that we feel closest to. We're all kind of related in that way. So again, just enjoying the time on the winter retreat here, very quiet time, and always a time kind of to reflect on just the appreciation I have of this life, of being able to practice the Buddha's teachings, being able to be a monk. It's sort of a time in the world where that's still possible, so I'm grateful for that, and all the support that I'm receiving daily, minute by minute. So just that sense of appreciation, gratitude comes up a lot, not only during the winter retreat, but it's highlighted because the mind quiets down a bit, and things are often taken for granted a little bit less. And yeah, so I'll have some surprise announcements for you at the end. So it's okay for you to tune out now and then come back in at the end. But there'll be some things that I'll let you know about. And there's one more I wanted to write down here. Anyway, I've recently been kind of reflecting during my meditations. What is it that often derails the mind and leads us astray, as many of you, I'm guessing, know about. When you're meditating and experiencing whatever it is that you're kind of focusing on. For many people, that's the breath, or some experience of the body, or perhaps you're reciting a list, something that keeps your mind concentrated. You could be following the nada sound. That's a sound in the kind of like tinnitus. It's like a high-pitched sound in the ear. Lumpur Sumedho and Ajahn Amaro are advocates of that method. And even though that's often our goal or our aim when we sit down to meditate, is to quiet our minds, to collect our minds, to bring them to a poise, a sense of watching and willingness to be open to whatever we might be experiencing. Yet, even with that intention, even with that strong intention, and doing what we can, sometimes the mind will often, much more quickly than we might have thought, just kind of go off into whatever the distraction it might be. I mean, it's not always just thinking about something in the past or the future or whatever. I mean, it can be just you get annoyed by the sound of a fan or the person breathing next to you, or some pain in the body, something that isn't so just catches your attention and isn't so that interesting, really, or wouldn't even necessarily be that interesting to you normally, but the mind moves towards it. The amazing part is how not just how quickly that happens, but how we're fooled by that, and we get involved in our own thoughts, and then the same thought, and then the same thought, and the same thought, and on and on and on it goes. It doesn't seem to end. So, and how, how is it that we can be so entertained by the most the just things that just don't seem to be that interesting? If we told them to somebody else, people would be, oh, yeah, okay. And it, of course, it's really important to keep an impersonal view around it, not to take it so seriously, and to kind of think, oh, this is my story and me, and I'm such a mess, or my mind's a mess, or these stories are terrible or ridiculous. Why do I keep reflecting in this way? I mean, we can ask ourselves that question, but often it comes with a sense of judgment of like, there's something wrong with me. Whereas most people have this problem. This is the problem of having a mind, and the experience of dukkha in this realm, in the realm of samsara. And so we have to deal with this over and over and over again, many of us. And we have to deal with sometimes the frustration that comes out of that. I have talked about how important it is before. I've mentioned how important it is to, when you catch yourself, your mind moving towards distraction, and you've brought yourself back. I've said many times over and over, it is not the time then to chide yourself and, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I lost it again, or that was a stupid story, or why can't I let go of this thought? It's more, oh, I'm aware again, I'm not lost. Because there's kind of distraction, and then there's being lost in your distractions, just kind of carrying on into these thought worlds, sort of like how the Buddha talks about rebirth. In fact, this is a way of rebirth, just our taking one story, and then that moves into another story, and then another one, and we're often not even aware of the sort of the curtains kind of coming down and going up, like in the scene of a play. And just how important it is to kind of, oh, wait a minute, this is good. I'm aware right now. So you come out of that being lost, that wandering mind, and you come back to the present moment. Often the present moment is something aversive around the fact that the mind was lost, and this is just what our minds do. It's totally impersonal. There's nothing we can really say that is like something about ourselves that's wrong. Our minds just do this. We're born into this. This is our existence, and so we're learning to wake up. That doesn't mean to stop our thought process, as most of you know. We're not trying to stop thoughts, but as an effect of what actually happens when we meditate is that the thoughts do often decrease, and we start to be much more aware of our body or whatever it is we're paying attention to. So one of the things that I think is really important in our meditative practice, again, as I'm mentioning, to kind of, rather than chiding yourself when you find this happening, is, oh, great, I'm aware again, I'm here, I'm present. And to bring up that intention, okay, just gonna try again. Try again, and with with goodwill towards ourselves, then that attitude really helps. It helps us kind of clean the slate of any negativity, and then we're able to engage again without kind of sinking in the mire, kind of sinking in the muck, and thinking that we're bad meditators or whatever it is. But the thing that I'm often interested in is the, this intention to stay with our present moment experience, and then our movement towards distraction, and our inability often to not catch that. And that's something that I think is really helpful to pay attention to, like in your meditation. If you're kind of, it's kind of easy to intend towards an object, but then to intend towards that moment of distraction is another kind of way, possibility of looking at the mind and kind of watching. And so as we are aware of our breath, as we are aware of our meditation object, we will gain more focus and see the mind's movement in much more subtle ways. So I guess basically as the hindrances start to decrease, so these hindrances of desire and greed and getting and aversion and hating and anger, or being slothful or lazy, restless, worried, and doubting, as those decrease, then we're able to catch the mind moving towards those distractions more and more. And as I also illustrated in the last couple of live streams, like it's our life practice, our doing moment by moment that's actually leading us towards that ability to see the mind getting distracted. We can't just do it on the cushion. We're doing it all the time. I was reflecting today on this morning. I was doing one of my punishment roles. It sounds bad to say that it's punishment, but I really enjoy the solitude, and the other monks are, actually one of them's only engaging in puja now. And so I decided, okay, I missed like an hour of meditation or something, so of my goal of what I wanted to do. So I went for that day. So I was like down an hour. So I went in to go practice. But before that, I had my whole morning routine I was doing, and I was really focused on like doing everything without getting distracted as I was doing that. Like, because I do kind of Pilates and yoga and have a whole routine that I have, and it was just, it felt so much better with that very driven sense of continuing to keep that mind there. And I don't mean driven in sort of the negative way. Like, come on, Cunda, keep it together. It was just more like, okay, I'm going to go over for puja at 4:45, whatever it was, this morning. And then that just that focus, that kind of continuing focus, it felt really good. And so it's important also, as I've mentioned before, to pay attention to that positive feeling we get when we are collecting our minds, when we're bringing ourselves to that attention, to watching that distraction, to making that our aim. And then I came to puja, and then actually nobody did puja with me. I did it alone, so that was okay. And sort of it keeps that solitude anyway that I'm enjoying. But and then I can rejoice in the others in their own solitude and what they're doing. But that sense that we have of distraction and are moving towards that, it's really the focus of what it is we're doing. Because if we keep paying attention to how the mind moves, from our intention to stay with the present moment, our experience of usually our body in some way or another, that movement really like keeps highlighting everything that we're practicing, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, just the intricacies of the Buddhist teachings. Like where is the mind moving? What's it moving towards? And we can kind of take a sort of very keen interest in that, so it becomes almost exciting to know, like, okay, what's the mind gonna get distracted towards this time? And that, I find that interest is really helpful. So I just wanted to encourage that for all of you to maintain that, and that non-chiding interest, that kind of sense of like non-judgmental, welcoming interest in like, this is going to happen. We know it's going to happen. We can't stop distraction. It's just the mind's going to do it, even in subtle levels of meditation, when we're feeling much more collected and calm, and we're able to follow our breath, and it's over and over, and that can be more subtle, and we're seeing things in much more fine rather than gross ways. Then we can take that kind of delicious interest in that, the mind moving and what it's doing. What is it creating? I mean, often it's creating self in some way or another. It's a movement of me again, and me waking up, and me kind of finding some interest in what there is. Never mind that, whatever the interest is, in terms of how boring or ridiculous it is. It's just sort of, what are we doing? What do we keep chasing? The more we get interested in that, then the more we actually see like, oh, that's what I'm after, that desire or that particular story I keep living in, and then that has meaning for us. We can say, oh, what is that about? What's the cause of that? Why do I keep moving towards that? And for many of us who lead pretty active lives, then we can have a lot of insight into what's going on for us in our daily life when we're off the cushion. We can also practice this when we're off the cushion as well. And that insight really helps us say, oh, like I don't, it teaches us what we, how to kind of encourage ourselves towards whatever it is we're doing that's skillful or unskillful. So it encourages us towards the skillful. We say like, oh, this had all these beneficial results in my practice. One of the questions earlier on was about humility. Living in humility bear fruit in meditation. And so, when we are disparaging and critical of others, or hold ourselves higher than others, that creates a lot of negativity, defensiveness, paranoia in the mind. It has a sense of self-aggrandizing and keeping our minds on the self and that becoming sense. Look at me, I'm so important. So when we kind of make decisions to be more humble, like today, I was in a conversation today that was a little bit difficult, and a person had actually been offended by something I said, a close person to me, and of course, my first reaction was, they're off. There's something wrong with them. I don't think, was it really that difficult what I said? Was it? So that starts to come to mind. I don't think so. Like, this person's really sensitive, or this person's really da-da-da, whatever it is. And then I said, and then I came up with a teaching. You might want to look at this, is what I was thinking of wanting to say, because I've seen this come up before, and I thought, no, I'm not going to receive any good fruits from saying anything like that. Whether or not I believe that person actually needs something as a teaching, or there's something wrong with them or their perception, it doesn't really matter, because there's no way I can actually add to that by saying, or help them by saying, like, let me tell you what's wrong with you. It doesn't work. They're already in a sensitive spot. And also, like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all me, or the mix of both of us. But there's something I'm possibly doing wrong, or something that's difficult that I need to look at, and not just quickly assess and say, like, oh, it's all them. So I did that, and it was great, because then I was able to say, you know what? Then I was able to back down to, in my own mind, this is going on, and say, oh, just apologize. Just say, I didn't intend towards, an insult or offense or da-da-da, but I'm sorry that I said something that was insensitive or that was painful, or, or to ask them. So I asked questions and kind of tried to get that. And that felt, of course, much better, which it always does. But had I not looked at that, and I just, it didn't, if I didn't have that pause in the mind, that sort of sense of like, okay, wait a minute, like, what's going to be beneficial? This is going to be, how many times have I gone down the road of, it's your problem, not mine, or let me teach the person like what's wrong, which you can't do that. Or I mean, I found that that's just a road to hell. So so how much more beneficial it was, because it's like taking the wind out of a balloon. It's sort of like, it just pierces that kind of tension. And the humility around that is like, no, I don't have to self-aggrandize. I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to come from a place of defense. Like I need to, buoy myself up or tell the world that I'm right, actually, or this person. So when that happens, then we say, oh yeah, there's results of these practices that we're doing every day, results of what we're doing. And then we have a potential to actually have an impact on our own minds, but also a positive impact on other people. So we're doing both. We're taking care of ourselves and taking care of others in that same way. So that was successful, because then I was able to talk about it with this person, and it quickly blew over. The problem blew over, and I also acquiesced around like trying to come up with other solutions, and so that's that's what we're trying to do all the time in our own mind. We're trying to say, wait a minute, okay, I'm moving towards something, and that's a distraction in a way, because the distraction is greed or aversion. I'm going to correct this, or whatever it was. The mind was moving off of the base of being collected, and then going into an unskillful direction, and to bring it back and just say, okay, there's a potential here to actually see what's skillful and what's not skillful, and then move in that direction. And it's not as though then I'm saying like, you just pay attention to the body the whole time. You do, but we also have to do things in the world, so we have to also engage. So in that way, then we move out into making a skillful decision, a skillful action, and then we taste the fruits of that. There was no conflict. There was no murmurings in the mind, or these kind of thoughts around this person, and why did he think that, or why did she do that, and they should really be more responsible for this, and why can't they be more like that. That just didn't happen. So we get that more and more when we're just aware of the mind moving towards one of these hindrances, any kind of distraction we might have. Anyway, those are just some words I have for our continuing practice. The basic is just sort of a sense of how we're intending and how we're looking at the mind, and just those that kind of taking a moment to really, when you can, say like, wait a minute, how can I find this distraction interesting, or something that's beneficial for my practice, something that I'm actually can gain in understanding and seeing dukkha more clearly, rather than this is a obstruction or an obstacle in my path, and I got to get rid of it. I have to annihilate. I have to stop all distractions and become the best meditator in the world, so I can finally realize nibbana and become the best person that I can be. That's just garbage. So we need to kind of try to move away from, be aware of, but also move away from that sense of becoming like the best, or this thing, or whatever it is that we think is our vision of our future as me somewhere else happy. Me here right now is sort of like where our aim is, and what's actually going on. So that's all I have, and yeah, and so that's what's there. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and then eventually I'll get to these exciting announcements. Take your time. I think I was given some feedback that the questions can take some time to think. You might take some time to think about them, so it's okay. We have some time here. I did want to. There was an interesting thing that came up this weekend. There was a question that came up around asking a question, and this person had spoken about having asked a genuine question, and then got a response to that question, not as not an answer to the actual question, but as sort of like, I think it was essentially like, if you're if you're asking a question like that, that's an immature way to think about things, or an immature way to ask a question. And that's, we do get that sometimes. We ask a question, it's genuine, but then we get this kind of, or we make a statement, whatever it is, but we do get these, what happens, like people react to us. They have certain things, and it's very hard when someone says something that is not only unpleasant, but there might be an air of aversion in it. Why do that? What's wrong with you? And it's really, it's hard to actually steady your mind. I can say for me in the moment, I was relating to that in terms of being given feedback, we say, like in front of a group, and I remember I've gotten a fair amount of feedback, and a couple of times it was a couple of times they were actually not, one was kind of way over the top from the action I had done to what was actually given to me as feedback, and then the other time was wrong. It wasn't true what was going on, and they were in front of the wrong one was in front of a large group. The other one was a little bit more private, where it was a bit over the top, and just relating like how difficult it is to maintain equanimity in that situation, how difficult it is to even be interested in asking a question again, because it's hard. It's hard to ask questions. It's hard to put oneself out there anyway. But then when we're kind of like come up in front of a situation like that, it also is discouraging from us to make inquiries. So it's hard to deal with situations like that. So that was really a useful discussion. I was quite happy to kind of talk about that because I had experienced that myself. And at the same time, there's also teachings we get from something like that. We do receive teachings when someone is harsh to us or says something back to us around what it is we're doing, or and the teaching is often like, well, why don't we actually take a look and see, like, well, am I immature, or was that immature, or where was I coming from, or even why did that person take that question that way as immature? So we do have an honest look, but then hopefully our sense and practice is around like, okay, I don't actually see that I made an error in that way. So then we want to, rather than blame the other person or go after them, is, I want to have compassion for that. They either misunderstood me, or maybe because something in the way that somebody says something back can be said in a negative way or judgmental, we can also have compassion for that. If that's how they feel, then I'm very sorry to hear them, to hear that's their kind of experience of living in the world. So that was a quite fruitful discussion. I appreciated that. And there was a story I related as well about how Ajahn Chah would say, well, if somebody calls you a dog, just turn around to see if you have a tail. And just a very useful teaching. It's like, well, just obviously most of us know we're not dogs, but we check, we see we're not dogs, it's obvious. Well, then we don't have to worry, like the person was wrong. But as human beings in the sense realm, we're sensitive beings. We are in a sense realm, we have senses, and we are sensitive. And so it's not easy to actually receive something like that, especially if it's in public. It's much harder as well. But one of the things as monks and nuns that we practice with is to receive those things, to receive things that are unpleasant sometimes, in terms of feedback, and it's sort of a helpful way, because we're supposed to look at it like a gem when we receive feedback, and not kind of like toss it away like it's something foul. We're supposed to say, okay, this is painful maybe, but it's like a gem. There's something maybe underneath that pain that's very beautiful that I can learn from. So that's one of the things we're encouraged to do when we're offered feedback. So I think I addressed the humility question a little bit, just that humility does bear fruit. As quoting, again, I need to get this down. One of the monks was there with me, but it was either Bhanteji or Bhikkhu Bodhi who said, if you want to learn humility, you have to be willing to be humiliated. So that's that being with that very unpleasantness that comes from not needing to defend, essentially. And we try to maintain our equanimity. We try to maintain our sense of our body and our experience, and then we see it just passes. It's not as it can stay with us for a long time, but it's rarely as intense as the moment that it comes. Okay. All right, here are some questions. There was one up here I think I missed. Oh, contemplation. Oh, just a question about contemplation. Well, contemplation is opposed to sort of what we call, I mean, contemplation can also be a samadhi practice, but contemplation is when we essentially bring up the Buddhist teachings in our own mind and we ask ourselves questions about it. That's contemplation. So, we might be experiencing something like when we're meditating or not, and we can bring up what does the Buddha mean by anicca? What does he mean by anicca? By impermanence, as Ajahn Chah would say, not being sure, don't know, and that sense of like not sure, like let's say like, oh, I'm sure of this. Maybe when I was telling that earlier story about the difficulty I was having. That, or even like somebody insults us, whatever it is, we make an assumption. This is why, or this is what's going on here. And we can say to ourselves, the contemplation is, don't know. I'm not sure. Or it's impermanent, it arises and ceases. So contemplation is doing something like that, rather than just focusing on our breath. But we can also contemplate the breath. So contemplation could include that. But essentially, that's kind of, I think, what it boils down to. Contemplation is just bringing up. It's sort of dhamma vichaya. There's another word that is like dhamma analysis. So kind of bringing up the dhamma, bringing up in our experience what it is that we're seeing. How is this the Four Noble Truths? How are the Four Noble Truths enacted? How do I see that right now in my experience? Have I realized any of these truths? Do I see them very clearly? The Eightfold Path is an excellent form of contemplation. Just you could keep contemplating that all the time. The Buddha talks about the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, so the wings to awakening. He doesn't actually label them, I believe, but they do come up frequently, and I think in a couple of suttas as an actual list of these 37 Dhammas, these ways that we enact skillful, or we move towards skillful actions, and that's essentially what the list is. So you can contemplate those. You can think about them for a long time. Dave Tatro asks, Ajahn, is comprehension of and commitment to right view through monastic teachings enough to support one's liberation without literal sutta study? Is sutta knowledge essential? That's a very good question, and not easy to answer. And different monks will have different answers to that. So one monk I know, Ajahn Cunda, is very much put the books down. Ajahn Chah would emphasize that. Really, like the only book you need to read is the book of your own heart. Your mind. That's all you need to really read is your heart. So, but Ajahn Chah wasn't 100% like that. And also, it's important sometimes when we hear teachings like that a lot of monks in Thailand do have a background in Dhamma from just living in Thailand and being part of the society there where it's so saturated with Dhamma teachings. So the extreme of a monk I'm thinking of who emphasizes this is Ajahn Cunda, and we asked him like, well, what have you studied? And I think like basically he's listened to a lot of Dhamma talks from teachers. Ajahn Chah is a teacher, and he said one time though, we said, what have you actually read? And he said, the Dhammapada commentary. I read the commentary of the Dhammapada. And that was it. That was all he had read. Now this is considered a very accomplished teacher. He's got several branch monasteries. He's a student of Ajahn Chah. I think he's in his early 60s now, and is revered by many. So his answer would be, you don't really need to study that much. Other teachers would say, no, you need to know all the Buddhist teachings. You need to really make that central to your life. And I've seen different monks have different attitudes around that. So some monks are study monks. Some monks study, a little. Some monks study a lot. Some monks study completely everything. And Ajahn Cunda, just to go back to Ajahn Cunda, he actually, when he was asked about study one time, said, when people were talking about the concentration, the collectedness of mind that you get, the samadhi that you get from reading and studying, and he said very little. You just, by reading, that's not, you get some, but very little actual collectedness of mind. The mind is kind of processing or can be scattered, or it's absorbing information in a way. It's not really paying attention to what's going on in the present moment usually. So that was his answer. Others, I think like at Abhayagiri, for example, there's been a more middle way emphasis on knowing the suttas. I remember Lumpur Pasno and Ajahn Amaro are sort of agreeing that they thought Abhayagiri was a bit more emphasizing of learning the suttas and knowing the suttas and bringing them up in teachings and talking about them than they had seen in some other monasteries. But there is, I would say there has been an emphasis from the Thai forest tradition that in some way or another, it's like, well, at a certain point, you got to put down the books, or not even at a point, like you need to find a middle path around it, because you can just get distracted in knowing, just knowing what are the Buddha's teachings, and that's all you do. So there isn't really a contemplation of the body, and or a reflection, as we're talking about Dhamma reflection, or there can be a lot of Dhamma reflection. And that's excellent, but that's not always the case when people are studying. They don't always reflect on what it is they're studying. So I think in general, while there can be an emphasis on sutta studies in some monasteries, or an emphasis on none, it's like it's up to each person kind of to figure out what is the appropriate amount. What's the right amount for them? Personally, my advocacy is, yes, it is good to study the suttas. Yes, it's good to know the Buddha's teachings. We can gain understanding from listening to Dhamma talks, but that's helpful, as you're saying, monastic teachings. As I'm mentioning Ajahn Cunda, he'd be an example of that. Surely other teachers are like that. Lumpur Liam, I think, has studied some, but also just like in his biography emphasizes how he paid attention to Ajahn Chah, and he just really focused on his practice, his kind of mindfulness, and his sort of the samadhi element of his practice. But the whole thing really was there for him, and so it's just up to each person to say, what do I need? What's the right amount? What is right for me? And I do think it's important personally to know the suttas and to think about the Buddhist teachings, because I find for myself it's really helpful to bring them up in my mind, and to know them, to kind of learn from them and everything. So that's sort of where I am with my practices. I enjoy learning the suttas, looking into them, trying not to be dismayed by them when they're quite complex and esoteric, difficult to understand. And also, I like memorizing them, knowing the Buddhist teachings and recalling them, bringing them up to mind. The Buddha actually advocated that. He said that in suttas. He would say, a bhikkhu is one who is able to actually consolidate the teachings, so to actually consolidate what he learns. So I would say, to kind of summarize and to get an understanding, and to bring that up in one's meditation as a contemplation. That's very important. So yes, somewhat essential, but it's up to each person how much they study the suttas. How do the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis support each other in this country these days? I am enjoying seeing the slow reemergence of the fourfold Sangha. Thank you. Well, kind of, I would say we have the kind of the on-stream thing is really nice. I get to see a lot of monks and nuns live. But in terms of support, I guess I would say directly, like visiting each other, seeing each other, and getting to know one another, whether it's bhikkhus with other bhikkhus in monastery, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, or bhikkhunis with each other. This is always really helpful to have like kind of a crossover. So Ajahn Cunda has visited here this winter. She came, and that was really nice because I knew her when she was a laywoman and very interested in the Dhamma, and her son was a monk at that time. He's no longer. And I lived with her son as well. I knew her grandmother. And so it's really nice to also have that longer, just that kind of longer sense of knowing somebody and their path and what they're doing. So that openness to relating and to kindness and to being interested in each other as brothers and brothers and sisters and sisters and brothers and sisters and sisters and brothers in practice is kind of one thing that we, how we support each other. So that kind of direct relating, I think, is actually really important, not just knowing that there are other bhikkhus or bhikkhunis here or there or whatever. So I think that would explain that one a little bit. That's just one quick one. Okay. Let's see. Bhante, can you say something to the world is swept away in relation to these uncertain times we continue to face? Yeah, I kind of have an interest sometime in contemplating like apocalypse. So like the ending of things or the things falling apart, and not as a source of creating despair for myself, although I think probably some people might endeavor to do that, but that's not it. Or it's more like a sober sadness, or a sober kind of like it's a reality, like just that we often rely on our sense of permanence in our experience, our sense of believing that things are permanent. We're going to wake up okay tomorrow and not have an aneurysm or whatever it might be, or our best friend dies or something like that, or some sort of emergency, or things around us just fall apart. Our relationships, what we rely on, our bodies, the economy, nation states, all these things they're fragile and they can fall apart. So, the world is swept away. It's kind of constantly always moving in that direction, and we do get messages like of that, which one needs to balance as well. Like it's not like we have a conclusion that we're living in the end times. We can't conclude that. We don't know. That's what anicca is about. But we can say that there are problems in the world. There are problems in society. There are problems with those we know and those we don't know. There's problems with all kinds of things. And in terms of just that samvega, that sober sadness I was talking about, it's very important to be able to pay attention to that and look at it, but not sink because of it, but to say, oh yeah, this is what the Buddhist teachings are about. Why would I be attached to something else that's different than that? Or even if I am attached, then how do I relinquish that attachment so that I'm not caught in despair or kind of negativity around things falling apart? And also, how can I contribute in one way or another? How can I help? That's a thing that we're trying to engage in, and that's often just looking for ways. I was today, we're often in our tradition we can have chocolate outside of our the morning hours, or inside the morning hours. But as a special thing, it's considered a medicine in the afternoon or evening if we're tired or we need something. And I was looking at a wrapper today, and it was someone had gotten us some endangered species chocolate, and it was just a chocolate company that supports organizations that are trying to help endangered species. And this one was about chimpanzees. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's really sad. That's true. Like, I really like chimpanzees. I mean, I haven't met too many of them, but I, I'm aware of them, or you kind of have a nice look at them on a video or in a zoo or whatever it might be, sometimes in the wild. And there's a kinship that's there. And so just looking at that, I was, oh, wow, that's really sad. Their habitat is being destroyed and they're threatened. And so, but I was really happy, if I just kind of move into that realm, then that's not quite helpful. But I was happy, oh, well, there's these organizations that are actually helping. And there's somebody who bought this chocolate for me, and there's a benefit from them having done that that's going to actually benefit other beings. And so I can actually feel happy about that. And that's a really good experience to have. It's something that doesn't have to be so oppressive for us. Okay, Scott was mentioning when my behavior is under the microscope, and I'm assuming your microscope means like when you're... Okay. When my behavior is under the microscope, any reflections, it feels oppressive when people assume knowledge of your mental state. I am stuck with anxiety when this happens. When able, I consider what the person says to see whether it is valid. I feel dis-ease. Yeah, it's not easy to hear when other people talk about us or make assumptions about us. And yeah, it's not an easy thing. And it can't end based on how they say something to us. It can feel oppressive and negative, and sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just like my example when I was saying, like, I can move into a sense of defensiveness. You're wrong, I'm not wrong. Or I can move into a more of a sense of mind is like, what's appropriate for this, receiving this information right now, like from this person, what is appropriate in how I receive it and how I respond to it. And then when I have that oppression can kind of slip away, because I know, like, well, it might be something that they're like way off base on, but I'm trying to evaluate that, or I'm trying to evaluate their assumption about me or whatever it is, but also to give space to, like, oh, okay, like, what's going on here? Often we're not getting a message. There's some other message. Somebody might say something offensive to us, but we're not actually understanding there's something else being communicated rather than just our behavior being offensive to them or something we've done or whatever they're saying. They're communicating fear. They're communicating that they're angry. They're communicating maybe annihilation towards you, or maybe they're, maybe they just have a difficulty relating. And so we want to kind of more come from compassion and say, like, okay, there is anxiety in me right now. I feel also afraid or angry towards this person, but that's just a feeling. So I need to try to develop this equanimity in me. So that's the practice, is like, so I can be steady when, when I'm shaken up by somebody else. That's the Buddha's reflection in the Dhammapada, which said, be like a broken gong. And you hear that, you're like, a broken gong, like a broken bell. If you've ever seen a broken bell, rung a broken bell, it's quite fascinating. You have a huge bell and you ring it and it like barely makes a sound because it's cracked. So the Buddha says, be like a broken gong, not resonant when struck. And then he says, there'll be freedom for you in the end. And then the other line is something about retort with words. I can't remember. I'm sorry. The point is when somebody says something negative to you, your goal is to be like this broken gong. You don't resonate when you're struck. So you don't reverberate. You don't kind of have that anxiety overwhelm you. But yeah, that dis-ease is present. It's going to be there, but we don't allow it to kind of shake us up like the bell. Instead, like the resonance isn't there. That's that equanimity we can aim towards. So eventually that's sort of our aim. Hope that helps. Are there any... Let me think about that, Bhavani. There's many, so it's kind of a big question. But let me think about which suttas are. There's a question about suttas can help understand the methods of contemplation. I'm thinking of the Majjhima Nikaya. There's quite a few. I mean, the Buddha. To be honest, the Buddha's like almost all the suttas are about contemplation, because that's what he's asking. He's suggesting, like, contemplate this, contemplate that, think about this, think about that, bring this up. This is how you practice. And so you're actually, every time you read a sutta, you're contemplating, what is the Buddha teaching right here? How can I bring this in? Anyway, specifically, I'll look that up for next time. As a Westerner, this is from Nick, as a Westerner with no Dhamma background, reading the entire Pali Canon has been invaluable for my practice. Highly recommended. Right. So I also highly recommend that. What else are you going to read? A lot, but don't. You can read the Pali Canon. If you want, Bhikkhu Bodhi has a book, and I'm forgetting the name right now, but it's, perhaps somebody can post it. It's his book. He recommends a number of suttas, and I haven't read that book because I've read the suttas, but I believe that are all in that book. So, but they're sort of his go-tos for how to introduce yourself. So if you want to look up Bhikkhu Bodhi and that book, or if somebody posts it, that would be great. Very good. Very good. Rick. Yes, Dave, I saw that question at the very top, and I think I answered it on humility. Bearing fruit in meditation. So I guess I'll if people want to, I'm going to save this question for next week, because there was somebody who asked me a question online, and I asked him to let me know if he'll be attending the live stream, and he didn't. So I'll wait till that. So now for the announcements, the much awaited announcements, or not awaited, or whatever. Here they are. So the first announcement is that, okay, here's the first announcement is Ajahn Cunda is returning. But there's always a Nietzsche, so maybe that's not true. But he is planning on returning. I just wanted to let you all know. Most of you knew that. So I guess the actual announcement is Ajahn Cunda is returning soon. So I wanted to let people know. He's planning on coming back around April 2nd or 3rd, likely April 3rd. And the three of us, Ajahn Titapanyo and Ajahn Kasapo and myself, well, at least Ajahn Titapanyo and Ajahn Kasapo and I are definitely planning on going back to Baigiri on April 4th or 5th. So we'll still be here the weekend, I think, of the 2nd and 3rd. And then Ajahn Kasapo's negotiating, so he might stay, he might not stay. He might go back to Baigiri, or he might stay. We'll find out. I think I asked him by March 1st if he can make up his mind. So hopefully I'll let you know about that. But Ajahn Cunda should be back. And then I believe Tan Sudiko, who some of you may remember, he is supposed to be coming up here for the springtime. And yeah, that's the news. Big news. And that's fresh news, very fresh. Hasn't been announced on the website yet, so you've all had the privilege of learning beforehand. The other news is that we're going to start Yoga Samadhi teachings again. And those will be on Tuesdays, every Tuesday. We'll be going back, and we will be in masks. And so this will be the last time you'll see me, or a part of my face, and you'll see parts of me. But I'll be wearing a mask, and we're asking if everybody else can until otherwise noted. So probably, I'm guessing, we'll be wearing masks in the studio until till we leave, and then Ajahn Cunda will make up his mind as to what he wants to do. I know the mandate is supposedly ending soon, but at least it's so close that we're gonna keep them on for the month of March. The live stream will be, we will do the sit, so we'll sit from 5:15 to 6:15. That will not be live streamed. Sorry to disappoint you who was hoping for that, because it's just like a video of me, ringing a bell and sitting there and maybe nodding or or something else. And it's just although I haven't been nodding lately, I have to say that hasn't been my go-to hindrance more recently. But the point is, that's not going to be live streamed. We will be live streaming at 6:30 from Yoga Samadhi beginning next week, and it'll be a little different format than we do on the live stream here from the Pacific Hermitage. From 6:30 to 7 will be a guided meditation, and from 7 to 7:15-ish or 7:30-ish, somewhere around there, a reflection, a 15 to 30 minute reflection, and then a question and answer for half an hour from 7:30 to 8, something around that. So there will be a meditation, so you still can have that meditation. It just won't be that hour-long one that we'll do live, but we will do a half-hour one starting at 6:30. So that is it. And morning coffee streams, those were great, but no, we don't have. Right now we're in our winter retreat, so we're in a kind of a quieter mode. I'm not sure what Ajahn Cunda is going to do. I do know that he is planning on coming back to Yoga Samadhi. So that's something. Whether there will be any live streams from him here at the Hermitage, outside of that, I don't know. I didn't ask him. I'm guessing for now he's gonna have a pretty quiet or subdued time in terms of his returning to something like that, to having live streams from the Hermitage. But he does. I believe he will continue to do live streams from Yoga Samadhi. I haven't asked him yet, but that's my intuition. So that is it. Again, I'll be in Mass next week. A little bit of a different format. You'll still be able to ask questions, and we'll have that extra meditation. It'll be longer. It'll be an hour and a half. Today was an hour. But that's it. I hope you are all well and enjoying the Dhamma, enjoying the fruits of the Dhamma. And that book that I was talking about is In the Buddha's Words. Thank you for those who posted it. Vivian and Linda and Ruby. And those are good suttas to start with. Excellent way to start on the Buddhist teachings, rather than just kind of jumping in and reading each Nikaya. I'd recommend that as a start. So, wishing you all well, a good week, much appreciation. And there's one more thing. Sorry, there was one more announcement, and that was that local drivers would be appreciated for us monks going to Yoga Samadhi. So that's one last thing I wanted to mention. So if any of you are interested, and Rick, you're excused. You don't have to come from Indiana to do this. Just driving from the Hermitage to the studio, Yoga Samadhi in White Salmon. It's 10-minute drive if you're in the area, although it might be longer from where you're coming from. And then driving back can be a different person from the studio back. That's usually around 8 p.m. The driving, though, to the Yoga Samadhi would be leaving around 4:30, between 4:30 and 4:45 p.m. So it's a bit of an earlier time, and that's on a Tuesday. Okay, wish you all well, and have a great week, and contemplate the Dhamma, and enjoy the Dhamma, and take an interest in those times when you do see your mind distracted, and rejoice that you have seen that. All right, be well.